Welcome to All Things Financial, Trey Peterson and Yelisey Coots. And today we are talking about the hidden cost of lifestyle inflation. Fun episode on how to deal with inflation, specifically in relation to your neighbors. Welcome to All Things Financial. Today we're talking about the hidden cost of lifestyle inflation. And I think it's a big thing because a lot of times what we see is as people increase their salaries, as their income goes up, oftentimes what you look forward to is what I would say is finally having some flexibility or some extra cash or fun money. And we've worked with a lot of families, hundreds of families, and most of the time when somebody gets a raise, I would say within 90 to 120 days, what they're shocked at is that it doesn't feel like they have any more cash. And that's because as soon as most people get more money, what do? They sell their house, they have a bigger payment, they get a car, they're stuck in a car payment. And now the raise that they got, they ate it up with one or two decisions. So today we're going to talk about that. How do you think lifestyle inflation impacts people today?
Everybody thinks they have a raise, they think they have, but there's nothing to show for it on the back end. Your bank account didn't get any bigger, your investment savings, you're not saving more. And you can understand though, like somebody who imagine if you had to go without all of these things and you're just hoping to get to a place where you can do a little bit more dining out, where you're not stretched so thin that you have a little bit of breathing room and you can do certain things.
After all, you've earned it.
Yeah, exactly. But, and you hate telling someone it's but really, you do have to pay yourself first. That is a huge principle in life. And we'll talk about some of the opportunity costs and actually whether it's a small dollar amount. I have an example later on where I'm going to talk about how much $500 a month and investing that over an average rate of return, how much that ends up being over, a 10, 20 or 30 year period. But for us, $300 to $500, I mean, that's a couple of meals. That's maybe doing some fun things. It's easy to do.
And what we've found is even most of the people that are nearing retirement, if they've got retirement assets of, 300, 500, maybe even under $1 million, at $300,000, $1 million.
Yeah.
If they retire at 65, the difference of spending an extra $500 or $600 a month for the next 30 years, or I would say 25 years, really till 90. Yeah. If you assume that one of them makes it till then, which statistically one of them will make it to their late 80s at least. For most people, they're $500 to $600 a month from either being in a great position or running out of money too soon.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize is that $500 a month is $6,000 a year that for 20 plus years now isn't in the market growing. It's being taken out. And literally, if they just trimmed their budget a little bit, it's the difference between being stressed and having financial peace.
I just talked to somebody, and apparently they've listened to nearly all of our episodes. He told me he was just a couple episodes behind.
Yeah.
I didn't know if this was going to be a positive conversation or not. And he mentioned this. He goes, I really appreciate what you have to say, Yelisey, but I mostly agree with Trey. He goes, I have kids and I want to have these experiences with them. And I understand the importance of saving every dollar and being as diligent as you possibly can. But also he's like, I just feel like, I don't ever want to save to where I'm actually going to regret missing out on certain experiences. And I don't want people to think that I'm advocating for missing out on experiences with your children.
Yeah, I mean,
but at the same time,
you're advocating. Well, I mean, I know, but also it's important that I think it's important that even on our podcast that we both correctly represent the way that we live.
Yeah.
And there's not a right or wrong, it's preferences, right? We would do more trips where I think you do a good job of keeping in your budget and instead of going flying everywhere like probably we do, you guys go to Duluth, which is, if you look at the average cost of your vacations versus mine, you're still creating memories. You're not skipping those.
Yeah.
You're just doing things that you're more comfortable with. But also a kid probably doesn't know the difference between Duluth and Disney World anyways.
Well, those two they might. How young of a kid are we talking?
No, I just thought it'd help you. Or no, but I mean, I think these are great. So we'll stick to it. But no, but I think one of the examples is, I think one of the strengths that we have is that we both can speak to listeners because we have different preferences.
Yeah.
So where we would go spend a week at Disney, you're bringing your family to Disney and you're doing one day at Disney. And I'm just saying that's a positive thing because you're not telling them no. You're saying yes. You're just doing it different than I've done it. And that's not right or wrong.
Well, in all fairness, we were going to Florida to go to the beach. I'm the one who suggested, without anyone else asking me and my family, hey, why don't we do one day at Disney? So it wasn't initially a Disney trip.
So if they would have said 6 days at Disney.
Well, the trip is only 4 days long. So it wouldn't have made sense.
No, all I'm saying is that I think it's really important is that with most kids too, it's not the cost of things that matter, right?
It's not. It's not.
And you're still doing those things. You're still spending a lot of time. But what I'm saying in a positive way, I'm on your side, which is a really rare situation to be in.
It doesn't feel like you're on.
No, I am. But I'm saying you're still going and doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
But the average like memory that you're creating costs quite a bit less than like maybe what I would do. And so what's positive is you're still giving your kids those great memories, but you're also staying in line with your philosophy on money.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
And I think that for everybody, you have to strike that balance, right? You have to look at what's a reasonable amount to have in savings for retirement. What's like, where is the sacrifice? Like there should be some sacrifice, right? People should have some type of delayed gratification. I know that's your favorite word.
Yeah, I love it.
But at the same time, not at the expense of like actually,
Right.
whatever might be neglectful of your children. So anyways, people in America, there's so many stats, whether it's Bankrate, Charles Schwab. I was looking at a number of studies where they found that it doesn't matter. And this is actually even from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So they track all kinds of things. They track 80,000 goods and services in our economy to see the rate of inflation, each one of those. They have so many different studies on savings and average family net worth and all types of things like that. Well, they have one that basically talks about it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what tax bracket you're in, what your earnings are. For each category, like your expenditures go up proportionately with your income.
Yeah.
It didn't matter like if you were a high income earner or somebody in the highest tax bracket or the lowest. On average, all of our expenses keep up very nicely, very proportionately with the income that's coming into the household.
Yeah.
It just shows that like people on average, like, lifestyle creep is a very big thing. You get used to a certain level and it just continues to increase with your income.
I think too, I was on the phone last night with some friends that they're really great people, kind of unique situation in that it's kind of the flip of what we normally see where she's the primary income earner and he's a stay-at-home dad. And we were talking about a handful of different things, but she was saying that, one of her goals is to keep growing and learning business. So she started hanging out with business people. Well, to hang out with business people, they go on double dates where the restaurants that they used to go to, for both of them, a date night was like $30 to $35, maybe $40.
Yeah.
And now they're going to dinner with people that have been extremely successful. And, when they go to dinner with those friends, they go, where do you want to go? And the friends will pick. And now they're spending $300 or $400 per dinner, because in Texas, they're going to nice steakhouses where before they didn't do that. Yeah. And so I think lifestyle inflation or the lifestyle creep also is related to the people that you hang out with. And so I was joking with them. I said, there's actually nothing more expensive than rich friends. And so even though I joke about that, one of the things I've learned is that if you hang out with people that have more than you, you're going to get exposed to more and you're probably going to get pulled into spending more. And so even though I'm a big fan of getting around people that are at the next level, the other thing I would say is, don't make irresponsible decisions.
Yeah.
Just because you're with people that make more money than you do, you still need to know where you're at. Don't do something that's uncomfortable or irresponsible just because you've got a new circle.
And I don't think you're saying that like that's a bad thing, right? Because you're in a different circle with a different group of friends. Like you're going to spend more money in certain circles, and that's it's not by itself. It's not a bad thing
as long as it's responsible.
As long as it's responsible. So here's the other thing. So that the Bureau of Labor Statistics report, and actually the latest numbers from 2024, they found that the average savings per household is between 3 and 5%. 3.6% for 2024 specifically, but that's kind of where it's been hovering, between 3 and 5%. And I think that's what you and I are addressing. It's not necessarily the lifestyle, the nice things, being able to afford things that you weren't able to have in the past. It's nothing like that. It's also just on the back end being responsible in terms of like your retirement, potentially saving for the future.
Well, here's what I would say, related and unrelated, is that almost every couple that we've ever met, one of them is a saver and one of them is a spender. And I would say one of the worst things is when the spender doesn't allow the saver to have any stability or security. Yeah. And one of the things I learned is just watching people and leading people is if people are tight with money, it actually steals their ability to dream. It steals their ability to think past where they're at. Because if you've got $20, $30, or $50,000 of credit card debt and you're trying to set goals for your family of maybe buying your first house, maybe starting a 529 for your son and daughter to go to college. If you've got a mountain of debt in the way, there's a good chance that you can't see past that. And so one of the things that happens to me a lot is I get people that'll email me or Facebook me or Instagram me, and they'll say, hey, we're trying to get control of some debt because we've got some big dreams and goals. Do you have a way that's different than Dave Ramsey because we don't like what he says? And I kind of laugh because I think that Dave Ramsey is one of the best at helping people pay off debt, eliminate debt. And it's like they know that Dave Ramsey knows how to do that, but they want another way. And what I would say is if you don't have a high income or a large income stream, then living by Dave Ramsey is the way to get out of debt. And as you eliminate your debt and as you increase your income, now you can take more calculated risks and you can borrow money. That's what we call good debt, not bad debt. But the reason I bring up those things is one of the things I tell everybody is when you first start getting raises, spend 3 or 4 months before you make any commitments where you let go of that cash, whether it's a home payment, whether it's a car payment. And then the other thing I would say is as you hang out with others that have more than you, make sure you don't feel like you're in competition with them. So I guess last piece on that is there was a couple that I was coaching and she just said that money was always extremely tight. He really wanted a new vehicle. Like he's like, man, I've been driving the same car for 10 years. And he's like, it's reliable and it works. He's like, just to be honest, I'm like embarrassed of the car that I drive. He's like, I'm a manager for the first time. I've never managed people before. And I feel like I need to get a new car so the people I'm leading respect me. And I go, man, if I were you, I would care very little about what the people you manage think. And I would care a lot about what your wife thinks. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I go, well, you're about to get a raise. Keep driving the same car and start creating an emergency savings account to give your wife some stability. And then after 4 months, decide, are we enjoying having extra cash or is the new car more important? Thankfully, he took my advice and he told me, he's like, my wife's happier than she's ever been because it's the first time that we've had a savings and we wouldn't have had that had I bought the new truck.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, we talk about like your living expenses, your house, and your transportation vehicle expenses. Those are the two biggest line items on anyone's budget. So they say that actually 50% of what somebody spends, 33% of it goes on housing and 17% on transportation. So like if you can if you can imagine, those are your fixed cost expenses, right? Your mortgage and your vehicle payment. Like if that's taking up half of what you're bringing in, a great way to control for lifestyle creep is not letting those become half of what you bring in.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to necessarily get a new house or maybe, get an apartment that's outside of your price range or maybe same thing with the vehicle. If you can minimize those, and I think that it gives you more flexibility for some of the saving, the investing, and some of the other. I mean, really, it's all about flexibility.
I would say when it comes to the big things, and nobody loves cars more than I do probably, or it's pretty rare anyways, is I think what's important is that you work within margins. So like you just said, like the average family, their mortgage, between the P&I and the insurance and the property taxes is about 33%. The number one thing that millionaires do actually is that they buy a house that takes up less than 25% of their income. And what it does is it frees up other dollars for investing, for savings. And so one of the things that we would suggest is you need to have margins and percentages of where your money goes so that you don't end up spending 50% of your net take-home pay on cars and houses, and now you're house poor, for the next several years.
Everybody knows that the S&P 500, if you look at it historically, it's returned about 10, 11%. If you take out inflation, real returns have been closer to 7%. So I just very quickly just pulled out my calculator just to see what kind of a rate of return, how much money would we have if you invested $500 at the beginning of each month for 10 years.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're saying, I'm going to take 60 grand off the table. I'm not going to be able to use that for my lifestyle. And then 10 years later at a 7% rate of return, you have $86,000. You might look at that and you might say, gosh, that's 10 years for 26 grand. That doesn't sound like a lot. But really it's the magic in compounding interest.
The next 10 years.
The next decade. The next decade, if you continue at the same pace of $500 a month, you'll have $260,000 having invested.
86 grows to 260.
Exactly. So that 86 is growing on your behalf. And I think that's why a lot of times people give up, because in those early years of investing, it looks like nothing's happening. You're just having to give up 60 grand. You're just doing without. You don't have the money. You can't, maybe you're not going on that additional vacation, or you're going out to eat less. But it does, of course, over time. And really the thing is, for what you and I do, we meet people in the latter stages of their life when they're in the third or fourth quarter, getting close to retirement. And the difference between someone who started early versus someone who's trying to catch up, I mean, there's a big difference there.
One of the things that you and I are super blessed in is that we found our career early on.
Yeah.
And I think that when we meet with people, one of the things, if you can make it happen, we don't have control over this entirely, But if you can find your thing early and stick to it, not only is there compounding interest in investments, but there's compounding interest in building a skill set, finding your thing early and building something. And that's part of what I'm writing about. So, all right, coming back to this, one of the mindsets I think a lot of people have, you're more engineer minded. I'm more sales marketing. Sales and marketing people definitely have, and I have this attitude of I've worked really hard. So if I have a big commission coming in, I deserve to purchase something with that. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we have to do as salespeople and marketing people is you have to know what your natural default or what your weaknesses are. And so one of the things that Steph and I do is, we started smaller, but now, we invest at least 35% of our income. And whether that's real estate or investments or, into businesses. And what I've learned is that because I like to spend money, real estate and other businesses is a great way to invest because I feel like I'm buying something.
Scratching the itch.
Yeah. But I'm also putting that money into things that are going to produce. And, real estate's probably more of like a good savings account versus like the market. But then investing in other businesses and things, those things excite me. And so what it does, it gives me the ability to spend it without losing it.
Yeah. And I think too, like with real estate, it's really interesting to watch you buy stuff. You're not just like buying because you just like can't help yourself. Like, oh my God, that house is beautiful. It's no, like you're actually like, I think you love putting the deal together. You love actually like talking to homeowners who don't have their property listed.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you're finding a win-win and it ends up being, it's more of a game than it is.
It's more of a game.
It's an impulse purchase. Yeah. Like it is for a lot of folks.
Yeah. So I would say though, that if you're like me and that your natural default is you enjoy spending money, one of the ways to win is to have things that you invest in where your money grows. And I think the first time that I watched myself invest money in the market, it was actually January of, I don't think I've ever told you this, but January of 2012. It wasn't until I was out of college that I really started, a retirement account. My first company kind of taught me how to do that. And the first time I watched money grow or my money make money, from me not working, I was like, okay, this actually is really satisfying. And what it did is it helped me not just be a total spender because I got to see what compounding interest can do for a person.
One other thing that, it's going to totally make me sound like a boomer, but social media and the influence that it has on our spending habits. There's numerous studies that talk about how most people are influenced by what they see on social media. And a lot of their buying and spending habits are informed by what they see on social media. And I know that, I'm not the most active person on Instagram or Facebook or whatever the heck they're using today. But, you can see how that also could lead to lifestyle creep, and it's artificial lifestyle creep.
No, because also everybody that's an influencer in social media, they're living lifestyles that take, really millions of dollars, right? I mean, you look, it's like everybody that's got, let's just say they have over 100,000 followers. These people have supercars. They're getting on jets. They're traveling to to like ocean places, basically weekly. So what they're also doing is they're just making everybody else feel broke, basically. Right. So what you do is you try to keep up with something, and then you find out that most of them, they're being paid by the resorts to go to the resorts because of the followers. Right. All those expenses are covered. Or you find out a lot of them, they're doing all these things, and they've got a lot of followers, but they actually haven't learned how to generate income. So they're traveling, but they have no income to like purchase a home or drive vehicles. Well, I don't even own a car. And it's because the marketing pays for the travel, but they actually they don't know how to monetize their channel. So the other thing is it doesn't pull back the curtain and tell you the truth.
Yeah, it almost reminds me though too, like, we have a number of people who we occasionally come across someone who their income is just sky high. They're at the height of their earnings. They're making a ton of money, but they absolutely have no assets. And it's like, if this job were to go away, if something were to change in your employment,
90 days later, their house is gone.
Well, anyway, I think it's maybe a great time to wrap it up. There's probably some things that we could share in terms of like what you could do, in terms of saving, some easy things like automating it.
What if you shared 2 key things to saving and fighting lifestyle inflation? And then I will, to wrap up.
To whatever extent you can. Like if you can figure out that these are my fixed expenses, these are the variable expenses that can fluctuate each month, and the fixed expenses, if you can keep those as low as possible, I believe in giving yourself as much flexibility as you can on the other side. And then if you can just decide like, hey, this is my lifestyle spending, this is the ceiling that I'm putting on that. I think if you can, it's kind of like a margin, but I would just say, hey, keep it within this. Give yourself permission for those dollars to go in whatever direction they need to go, but put a ceiling on it. And then
A ceiling being a percentage or a dollar amount?
whatever works for you. I don't know. I mean, I think some people prefer dollar amounts. Maybe that's what they're used to. I think that percentages are kind of what you gravitate towards, but I'm not going to get, if someone is at least putting a ceiling on it, like they're already a few steps ahead. And then I think that what helps a lot of people is if they automate it, like if they don't even see it. Like if you got a raise or if you have money coming in and it doesn't even land in your bank account. That's why automatic 401k contributions are fantastic, because you don't even feel like it's yours.
Right.
So it makes it easier. You adjust your life to the net inflow, what you have from that paycheck. And I think that that's probably the most successful thing that people can do to find success when it comes to investing.
Yeah, very good. So I would say two things. Number one is live within margins, right? So just decide that you're never going to spend more than 70% on yourself. Then you got 10% for church, probably 20% for retirement savings, and live that way. I would say the second one is to pre-decide that how your spouse feels about how you spend money is more important than how your friends and neighbors feel about how you spend about money. What's interesting is I think most people end up having a bad marriage because they never get their finances in order. And a lot of men wonder why their wives don't follow them. And it's because they've never lived a life worth following. And so I hear a lot of men go, my wife she won't take my advice. Well, do you have any wins that you've stacked to show her that you're a good decision maker? And for most guys, it's not. So my second piece of advice would be stack your wins so that your spouse wants to follow you.
Yeah. And for those listeners out there that think I don't want you to have any fun and not spend any of your money, that's not true. You can enjoy your life. You can spend some money as long as you're also responsible in the back end.
Thank you for joining us. We hope your day is great. Join us for our next episode on All Things Financial.
Advisory services are offered through CG Advisory Services, LLC, a registered investment advisor, and through Guardian Wealth Strategies, LLC, a registered investment advisor. CG Advisory Services, LLC and Guardian Wealth Strategies, LLC are separate and unaffiliated entities. The topics discussed on this podcast are for educational purposes only and are not intended to be investment advice or recommendations. Listeners should consult with their own financial professionals before making any investment decisions.